You swore you wouldn't go back to that person again. And yet, the next time they called, you still picked up the phone. You promised you wouldn't choose that kind of job again. And then you sat back at the desk, just like your old boss, with the same old feeling of exhaustion. You told yourself you wouldn't let yourself get hurt by it again. And then everything repeated itself, just in a different form. Why? Why do we know exactly what hurts us, what's no longer right, yet we repeat the same patterns as if we're programmed? Perhaps you've thought of yourself as lacking confidence, indecisive, or addicted to drama. But the truth lies beneath the surface. You are not weak. You are being driven by a system of beliefs and wounds that have taken root too deeply. And when you understand why you're addicted to negative loops, you can finally start to unravel them, not through denial, but through the light of awareness. Let's start from the root. Why do we keep staying with what once broke us? And why does that very suffering give us a sense of security? There are loops you think you've escaped, but in reality, you're just changing the context, the characters, and the form of the hurt. New people, new job, new environment, but the old feelings still linger. It's not a coincidence, but an internal programming system that was deeply ingrained long before you were even aware of it. What draws you into those patterns isn't because you enjoy suffering, but because you've become too accustomed to having to prove that you're worthy of love. From a very young age, you may have tried to be seen, heard, and recognized, but in return, you only received silence, hurt, or rejection. Children don't know how to analyze logically. They only know how to blame themselves. I must not be good enough. And from that point on, you begin your journey of trying to prove your worth through others. Every time you fall in love with the wrong person, you think it's love, but in reality, it's an unconscious instinct trying to find what it's missing, not for happiness, but to repair memories. This time, I'll be chosen. This time, they will stay. This time, I'll be worthy. But sadly, the more we try to fix things on the outside, the more we repeat the inner lack. One of the strongest reasons you can't break free from the loop is because it makes you feel safe. Sounds ridiculous? Imagine you've been abandoned, failed, and betrayed. Your brain will remember that pattern as a way to defend itself. Okay, next time I won't be surprised. And then you start choosing situations where you can predict the outcome. Even if it's negative, even if it causes you pain, at least you know what's going to happen. And that gives you a sense of control. So you stayed, not because it's good, but because you know how to survive in it. The more you repeat it, the more your nervous system reinforces the idea that this is the real world. And every time you face a new choice, your heart might want to change, but your subconscious will pull you back with the question, what if it fails this time too? What if they abandon me too? And so you stayed, one more time, in the very model you hate the most. Additionally, the imbalance between masculine and feminine energy within you could make you lack the inner strength to lift yourself out of the loop. You may lack the seriousness, consistency, and discipline to say, enough. Or you lack self-soothing, self-acceptance, and self-love, so you don't need to seek it from others. When you lack both, you get stuck in toxic crosshairs, unable to act and unable to heal yourself. You know you're in the wrong place, but you don't have the strength to leave. You feel like you're repeating yourself, but you don't know where the off switch is. The truth is, no one teaches you how to get out. Society praises perseverance, but doesn't teach you how to let go at the right time. Culture tells you to forgive, to hold on, to try, but it doesn't say holding on to what's wrong is betraying yourself. You don't need to stay. But before you go, you need to understand why you stayed in the first place.
A loop doesn't just happen on its own, and it's not simply a bad habit.
It's a whole system that works precisely according to the mind's and emotions' defense mechanisms. When something happens and touches an old wound, a word, a look, a silence, the brain immediately triggers an alarm signal. And before you could even analyze it, your body reacted as if reliving the past. Your heart races, your chest feels heavy, and your throat tightens. Not because you're weak, but because your nervous system still thinks you're under threat. From then on, a chain of automatic reactions began. You react in the old ways, getting angry, being silent, walking away, trying to please, or feeling not good enough. And after the reaction, you blame yourself again. Feelings of guilt, shame, and disappointment resurfaced. The more you blame yourself, the more you believe that that's just how I really am. And so that false belief was reinforced again. A complete loop: trigger, reaction, self-judgment, reaffirmation of the old pattern, and waiting for the next trigger. The most dangerous part of the loop isn't the external reaction, but the internal reprogramming. Every time you react the same way as before, you're teaching yourself that this is who I am. And over time, you no longer recognize what is an unconscious reaction and what is your true self. You assume you are usually jealous, hard to forgive, not worthy, and always attracting bad things. But in reality, you're just living in an old script, a psychological code that was written before you were conscious enough to rewrite it. That's precisely what makes it difficult to break free from the cycle. Because every time you're about to change, the old will rise up to protect itself. You'll have voices in your head saying, "Don't try anymore. You're just going to fail again. Why forgive them? They'll just hurt you again. Someone like you doesn't have anyone who's truly sincere." Those voices aren't the truth. They're bodyguards of fear, created to keep you in your comfort zone, even if it's painful. You weren't wrong to react like that before. That's a survival mechanism. But if you're here, still listening, then perhaps you're ready to face the truth. The loop isn't destiny. It's a system. And every system can be dismantled, if you're willing to stop and observe. If you're tired of repeating the same pain in different forms, it's time to stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" But instead, it's, "How will I respond this time?" The loop doesn't end on its own, but it will start to disappear the moment you refuse to act the old way. So how do we start breaking it down? First, go back and heal the root. It's not the root of the matter, it's the root of the emotions you carry within. A lot of current pain doesn't come from the present. They are the remnants of a child within you, once abandoned, once judged, and once ignored. Each time you fall into a loop, the child within is actually speaking, calling out for you to hear them. But the adult within you ignores or avoids it. So next time emotions surge, don't rush to deal with them. Stop and ask yourself, when was the first time I felt this way? Not to sink back into the past, but to diffuse the unconscious trigger that has controlled you for too long. Second, change the way you react. Every loop exists because of similar reactions. To make it stop, you don't need to fight it. You just need to not react as you usually do. Next time you find yourself wanting to scream, walk away, appease, be silent, or run away, breathe. Write it down. Slow down by 10 seconds. Try saying something new. Try not to say anything. Or simply look at that emotion and do nothing. That small disruption, that's the crack in the door that lets you escape the old system. You don't need to win it. You just need not to do it again. Third, learn to live with the unknown. The loop system hates uncertainty. It wants you to predict the outcome, anticipate danger, and control everything. But that's also why you always choose the old path, because you know what it's like, even if it's not good. Breaking the cycle means choosing the unknown. It means stepping outside your comfort zone. It's about trying a new reaction, a new choice, a new boundary without knowing if it will work. You don't need to jump into the sea. You just need to start with small things. Brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand. Read a book in a genre you've never explored before. Talk to the friend you think you don't get along with. Don't plan for tomorrow morning. That wasn't a random challenge. It's nerve training to get you used to being safe without needing control. Fourth, learn how to be a mother and a father to yourself. No one is coming to save you from the loop. No lover, no healer, no guru, no angel. Only you and the version of yourself you learn to both embrace and lift up. When you're a mother, you learn to listen, care, and be present with your emotions. Not oppressive, not strict, not demanding. When you are your father, you learn to set boundaries, keep your word, and act with discipline and responsibility, not out of fear, but out of self-love. Without one of the two, you easily slip back into the old loop. Too soft, you forgive what shouldn't be forgiven. Too strict, and you'll just beat yourself up every time you stumble. But if you have both, you'll be strong enough to embrace your inner child and also have the inner strength to lead it out of the old room, open the door, and step into a place it's never been before. Breaking the cycle doesn't require a major revolution in your life. It starts with a small moment where you choose not to react as you always do, little by little, and then the system will collapse, not through effort, but through awakening. Something strange happens when you no longer react the same way you used to. Everything will initially become empty. No drama, no strong emotions. Not only is the familiar high coming from struggling, controlling, pleasing, or getting angry, and it's at that moment that you'll feel lost. Not knowing who I am if I'm no longer the always enduring, always strong, or always betrayed person. But stay. Don't rush to fill that void with a new loop. Because just a few steps beyond that emptiness, you will begin to hear your true voice. It wasn't an echo of trauma, not an old reflex, but a very small yet clear sound. Oh, so it turns out I can react and still be safe. Oh, so I don't need to fight for love. It's still there, as long as I don't abandon myself. You start living slower, but deeper. You start choosing relationships because they're right, not because they're familiar. You start taking action because it's truly important, not because you have to prove anything. You're starting to see others more clearly, and also being clearer about setting boundaries for yourself. And then, on a very ordinary day, you look back and realize, I've gone through a whole cycle without getting caught up in it. No need to win, no need to fight. It's simply that you don't need it anymore. If you've come this far with me, it might not be because this video is good, but because a part of you truly wants to change. It's not a superficial change, not a new ego to cover up the old, but a change that comes from the courage to face oneself, with scratches yet to be named, with the emotions you once tried to deny, with the familiar loop that once made you think, I'll always be like this. You are not that loop. You are the one observing it. And if you're awake enough to observe, you are entitled to choose again. If this video has awakened something within you, leave a mark, a subscribe button, a share, an icon. It's not because of the algorithm, but so we can still recognize each other on the journey ahead. We are still practicing with the darkness, and it was in that light began to have meaning.